John was working in his science lab, got blasted by gamma rays. Now he's Smash Trivia John, always smashing. He's friends with Ruffalo, crushing on Maslany, and also Sydney Sweeney. John's here saying, hello my gamma friends, welcome to the show, the Gamma Analysis Podcast.
Smash.
Hello, my Gamma friends. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Smash Trivia John. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram by searching Smash Trivia. And I'll be the one with the big old green head in the profile picture. This is the Gamma Analysis. Basically, I'm going to review everything Hulk, all the movies, the TV shows, and also I do random other geeky films and occasionally not so geeky ones as well. Hope you enjoy Smash Trivia Presents the Gamma Analysis. I want to ask everyone listening if they could please do something for me. Please share the hell out of this podcast with all your friends. If you don't, Hulk will be angry. Hey, let's smash right into this episode. All right, today we're going to review Mad Max Fury Road, and I'm joined by my friend and Matt from the Low Bearing Beans podcast. Which Matt is also the person who made my new theme song. Which thank you so much, man, for making that. And I want to take a little bit to talk about that before we get into the movie. Well, that's actually like what started getting this episode going. You messaged me saying you wanted to talk a little bit about it. So, I guess I asked.
Yeah, I wanted to explain it and like how it came together, because you asked me if this would be something I could do, and I wanted to help you. You asked me during the summer, and that's like the busiest time in the world for me. So I said it would take a little while, but I did. Basically, I wrote it in my head while I was playing miniature golf with my son. Nice. But the way this worked is you sent me a link to the Hulk cartoon show from the 60s.
Yeah.
Which I had never heard before, but I was enraptured by this song.
Oh yeah, I've never even actually watched the show, but I've found that theme song on YouTube, and I instantly fell in love with it.
It's a wonderful song. If you've not heard it, folks, go just check it out on YouTube. It's a very 60s kind of just cool mod sounding, like multiple people. It kind of sounds like that song that's like well, now the only song coming to my head is the Hulk song. It's kind of like who's walking do the it's just got that kind of vibe. And I was like, okay, if we can just change the lyrics to this to make them about Smash Trivia John, then we might have something here. And that's what we did.
Oh yeah, and it worked really well. Now you told me that the other day that you searched through hours of Hulk content to find the perfect Hulk on screen. So what all did you end up watching
hours,
to try?
Hours. That's an exaggeration. No, I just scrubbed through the Ang Lee film and the 2012 Avengers film.
Okay. Cool.
And just whenever I saw green, it's like, okay, here.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And then I just clipped it, and I just really liked him twisting around in the 2003 movie, twisting around while holding a tank and throwing the tank. And I love Hulk throwing a tank. To me, every Hulk movie should have that. And see if you agree with me about this conspiracy theory. I know like the reason there's not a solo Hulk film is because there's rights things with Universal. Mm-hmm. I also wonder if, because Marvel Studios is very in deep with the Department of Defense, do they not want to have Hulk throwing around tanks and stuff?
Yeah, I don't know.
I always think the worst, so.
I'd be interested if that was the case. And would make for a really fun movie if they be like if someone created like a fictionalized story of this is why I marveled is it making Hulk films.
Yeah, that would be a great movie in and of
Like
itself.
reminds me of how it never ended up happening, but I remember like 8 years ago or something there was a rumor that that some company was thinking about trying to make a fictionalized Stan Lee film where he is like a secret agent.
I remember this. I remember hearing something about that.
Which I'm like, that sounds really fun. On it saddens me that that never happened.
Would it be the actual Stan Lee playing himself, or we
I
get a young
don't.
hot
I'm
Stan Lee?
pretty sure it would have been a young actor playing him, and not not actual Stan Lee. Though I did see a lot of people suggesting, and for someone who is older but still is like so able to do a lot of acting is Bryan Cranston for the role.
Boy, that makes a lot of sense. And he can play a good guy who turns evil just like Stan Lee, going up against Steve Ditko and
Yeah.
Jack Kirby and stuff. Bryan Cranston, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, oh, were there any like points where during trying to make the theme song where like you had any kind of struggles or problems with making it, or just was it a smooth process the whole way?
It was surprisingly smooth. It's really just time. It's just finding the time to experiment with this stuff. And I
Understandable.
had no idea how I was going to get the sound from the real song of I think you have a man and a woman harmonizing with each other. Instead, you just have me harmonizing with myself. So just two of me's. And I just had to accept that. And that's okay.
Yeah, it worked really well. I think so. It's fine with me. Yeah, but
I
yeah.
write I write music, and I find I've done a few songs for podcasts for my own podcast, and they're all like a minute or shorter, and I'm able to do them so fast. And it's like I guess all of my music should just be a minute or shorter. That I'd be so much more productive if I could do
I
that.
bet. Now, signing doing showing a lot of people the theme song. They kept mentioning is like they're like, how did you get to sound so professional? And that I kept telling him is how you're part of a band, and so you've learned, I'm guessing, lots of stuff to make things sound professional from doing that. Is that am I right in that
Uh,
assumption?
I try. I'm really bad at I'm so I my day job I do video and audio editing, but not music editing. And music editing is like its own particular skill, and I've always tried, and it's always been a struggle for me. It's like something you really have to like make your focus for years and years to master. But because this was a very simple song, it didn't have it's just a guitar, a bass, and drums and vocals. It's only 35 seconds long. It's very like that's something I can manage. If it got more ambitious, I would have had to bring in my friend who's a producer and has his own little studio.
It's like I was while we were like messaging back and forth ours for this, I was like, I do not want to make you have to do a lot of work, so I'm not gonna ask you to do all that craziness.
No, I understand. I wouldn't have wanted somebody to do that for me either. But for me, like even though I'm doing it for you and I'm doing it for your podcast, like once I start working on it, then I feel like it's in my head
Mm-hmm.
and I can hear it in my head,
Okay.
and I just want it to sound as good as it
Oh
can
yeah.
be. And what's great about making music or making anything else creative, as you know, is once it exists forever.
Oh yeah.
And you're not
Definitely.
going to remember how much of a pain in the ass it was to work on it. And I'm not saying this was a pain in the ass, but if I'd had to put a lot more work into it, it would have been worth it because it exists forever and people can hear
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. Now, the last thing I really wanted to ask about it is like just from what I've heard, it sounds like you and your band and you guys were much more active like years ago. Or are you guys still active as well? if you are what's you guys' name so that my listeners can check your band out.
Yes, the band is called Rural Route 9. It is the worst band name of all time because you can't no one can spell it, no one knows knows what I'm even saying. It has a number in it that's spelled out, but we started the band in 2005 and it's a Simpsons reference, and most things in my life are Simpsons references, but I didn't know about things like SEO and websites and all that back then. But anyway, that's what the name of the band is. We kind of the three members, we all live in different places, so we don't really play shows anymore. But we recorded an album 2 years ago, and we do still record music, and we'll be recording again next year. Going to be recording a new album next year. So if you like, pop punk from the 90s and 2000s, if you like Weezer or Green Day or Blink 182 or even the White Stripes, bands like that, check us out. Rural Route 9. We are on Spotify and wherever else you get music.
Nice, nice. Yeah, everyone, please check them out. I definitely will, since that's definitely my taste of music as well. So, oh yeah, that would be awesome. Let's actually get into this review of Mad Max Fury Road. Ode. So this is so to do this review, this was the first time that I've actually watched the film, which I liked it, but I think that all of the hyping up that I've heard about it over the years kind of made me have a lot of way too much expectations about it, because like I was thinking it was gonna be this super complex, crazy film, and it's really a very simple film.
It's a simple story, but I would not call it like it
I don't
is
mean like
crazy complex from a
I don't mean like it's not complex for how they made it. I mean like just like the story and
yeah.
like like how I always heard it talked about out was like on the level of these like absolutely crazy lore wise films like say Lord of the Rings or something like that, and
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm like this is very simple compared to something like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So I saw that you posted on Letterboxd. You said or you said I thought it was okay, and my blood pressure started to raise, and I was like, oh boy, I was gonna Hulk out, but then I remembered. You know who else felt that way about this movie when he saw it for the first time? Me. I felt that way the first time I saw the movie because I didn't see it in theaters for some reason, and all I'd heard was how amazing it was, and I finally watched it on Blu-ray, and I was like, yeah, this is good, but I don't. It's like it is kind of overwhelming to watch it the first time, and there's so much going on in every frame of the movie, so you're just kind of trying to follow the story, and I guess the story can seem a little underwhelming. So I enjoyed it, but I just kept
Yeah.
thinking about it, and then the next time I watched it I was just like, god, I love this.
Mhm.
And every time I watch it now I love it more and more.
Like I think that for at least most people who watch it, the big thing that they are getting out of it is the action set pieces and stuff like that. It's not like the story is less important because it's just everything else is so cool about it.
Well,
It's kind of what I think is with most people.
mm, I'd even push back. Like, I think the action is the story. Like, I think the way a story is told
Mhm.
is the story. But if you're just talking about like characters and stuff, I think this has a really powerful human story that is so like subdued, and because there's not much dialogue, it is kind of hard to miss. But if you're really like tuning into, especially the relationship between Furiosa and Max, I think it is a really profound story, and I think in terms of basically rebelling against a dictator as they do with Immortan Joe, and it's got overthrowing the patriarchy and trying to give power back to the people. I find that all of that really powerful,
Oh yeah, definitely.
and I just I don't agree that saying that the most impressed like, that some people will say like style over substance, and I always think style is substance because it's a movie, it's a series of moving
Mm-hmm.
images. It's not a book.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, something I was feeling while watching, and though I don't think that it needed to be more R rated, but like I was surprised at how little R-rated it is. It's not it's like the violence in it's not very bloody. There's not like there's I don't think that like any of the nudities like at the point of like an R rating. There's
Yeah.
barely any cursing, and like I, which made me wonder: did you is it R rated just for that novelty of it being R rated? Because like I feel like if they basically had the same film but it's PG-13, and it would have made so much more at the box office, and then it wouldn't have taken 10 years for Furiosa to come out.
Well, I so there's this great book. I have it right here. Blood, Sweat, and Chrome. The oral history of Mad Max Fury Road. So if your listeners like this movie, this book is by Kyle Buchanan, and it would just be great if like every movie we loved had a book written about it, about the making of it. And George Miller talks about how he was surprised that the movie was rated R. He said he assumed this was PG-13. But I think if there's any, the reason it's rated R is just intensity. It is so
Mm-hmm.
intense that it's not
Makes sense.
meant for kids. Although my 13-year-old watched it with us and was like in love with this movie, was
Yeah,
just
like I
gushing.
think this definitely doesn't feel like anything like more than what I would allow a 13-year-old to watch.
Yeah.
Heck, when I was as a kid, I watched a lot of R-rated movies with my family.
Yeah.
Many that I probably should not have watched
Sure.
and wish that I didn't.
Name one.
um, any Steven Seagal film.
Oh, okay.
My dad loved Steven Seagal, so we had to watch those, and it was so annoying because there was like a lot of them. Like half the film is nudity, and so we were just skipping past all of that, and it was like what I have no idea what's going on at
Yeah.
all because as you cut out half the film.
No, I know that without the nudity, you just have to focus more on Steven Seagal, and nobody wants that.
like but yeah, like I watched so many R-rated films as a kid, so I'm my view might be a little bit tainted, but I do think something like this I would be very okay with a 13-year-old watching.
But I think that the violence, it is not a violent move like in terms of just like kills and stuff. If you compare it to a Marvel movie or something, they're about even, but it feels so much more intense in this movie. And I think that's George Miller, the director, is his strength, is he really understands like human
Mhm.
anatomy and understands how things feel. Like when Max gets an arrow
Yeah.
through his hand and then it goes a little bit into his head. I feel that so viscerally.
Mhm. I would argue the violence and the blood in this movie is more so than the Marvel movies that we get today, but I think it's around the same level as back when the first Captain America movie came out.
Hmm.
That like in that film, there's literally a scene where a guy gets chopped up by a helicopter blade.
Yeah.
And I think that's around the same level as with the blood in this. And I just think ratings for films are so interesting to me. I mean, because it's just like it's a lot of times seems so arbitrary, in
It,
my opinion.
oh yeah, it absolutely is.
And I think sadly there are a lot of people who care way too much about what science rated because like I feel like there's probably a lot of Mad Max fans who they would have been absolutely pissed if this was PG-13.
Yeah,
And
it does.
I don't understand that mindset. If it's the exact same film, they don't really have to take anything out. Why you would be pissed at something like that? But I know that they would.
It's a good point. I mean, I have that a little bit. If a movie is rated PG-13, like there was, I think Terminator Genesis or whatever the fifth Terminator was rated PG-13, and I thought like Terminators are rated R. This doesn't make any
Mm.
sense, and I didn't see it as a result. Also, the reviews were terrible. but I do kind of have that reflexive, like, if it's rated PG-13, that's for babies. That's not for me.
Mm.
Although it could be exactly the same
Yeah.
movie and be rated R.
Hey, I found a lot of films over the years. I feel like where I'm like these blur the lines so much, and it's like, why is this rated R or something, or why is this rated PG-13 instead of rated R? And it's like, how they you know I also think that there are some characters where people's idea of them isn't actually what the character is, so it doesn't matter as much actually about if whether the characters are rated. Like the character. I know you're not a big fan of the Deadpool movies, but the character Deadpool, yeah, in the films he's R rated. He's never R rated in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, why did it somehow the fandom decide his movies have to be R rated? Like that's like I that the psychology of that just so interesting to me. Like, why would you decide something like that needs to be the case when it's not historically been the case for the character
I
or
guess
something?
with that case, I don't know anything about the Deadpool comics. I've never read them, but I've heard people say that, and it's so hard. My only idea of Deadpool comes from the movies, so I
Mm-hmm.
can't imagine a non R-rated Deadpool. But I mean, maybe the idea was how these movies. What can you actually do to differentiate this character in these movies from all the other superhero
Mm-hmm.
movies? And if we make it R-rated and we make it extremely vulgar, that signals to you this is
Yeah.
very very different thing.
And I think that I think if you are setting out to make your film R rated, you're using the R rating to because that'll make your story better. Cool. But I think there honestly I think are even some situations where it's better if it's PG-13 or something because then instead of just focusing on oh this is vulgar or you're actually making people focus on that human element of it.
Mm-hmm.
If it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
that makes sense. I feel like to maybe it is just like we are intending this movie for adults, so if it gets an R
Mhm.
rating, we just accept it. We're not going to push back.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're making a blockbuster that you're intending for
Oh yeah.
for general audiences, and the MPA
Oh,
comes back and says this is rated R, you are going to then
mm.
invest in cutting the movie and removing stuff
Oh,
from
yeah.
it to get
So,
down to a PG-13.
but like that happened with the first Avengers film. It got an R rating at first, but and I'm pretty sure it was like for a interrogation scene with Black Widow and Um, and so they cut it back so that they could get that PG-13, which I think is very smart for R for that. It didn't need to be an R-rated film. And no, obviously, as I've already mentioned, this doesn't really feel R-rated to me. But I haven't seen Furiosa yet. Is it? Would you say it's more mature, around the same level, or what?
I think it's a lot more mature.
Interest.
It involves it is just a very different kind of story. It takes place over a long period of time. You live with Furiosa as a young person and go through all the trauma that she goes through. So it's I'd say it is more adult. That is a movie I don't think, even though I took
Mm-hmm.
my 13-year-old to see that movie, but again the I'd say 13 and up. But that one
Mm-hmm.
definitely feels like a more mature movie than
Makes sense.
this
Okay.
one.
Now, I expected going into this, and I probably shouldn't have, but I did, because I was thinking the name of Fury Road was going to be something related to Furiosa,
Yeah,
just because they're so similar.
I know. I know. No, just it's just a cool name and just a
Yeah.
cool thing.
No. Oh,
I think, when they named this movie, nobody knew who Furiosa was. And I
yeah.
think that they are thematically, it's not coincidence that she's named that and that the movie is called this.
Mhm.
But now that a movie exists called Furiosa, you might think like, is she literally named after the road? But no, it's just a
Or the
title.
road named after
Is
her.
the road named after her?
Oh, yeah, so this is actually like the first Mad Max film that I've like actually seen the whole thing of. I never watched the Mad Max films as a kid. My brother did. My brother Gregory, and and like it. I walked into the living room sometimes when he was watching them, so I've seen a few scenes. In the vibe of this is very different from what I remember of seeing him
Mm-hmm.
watch those older or Mad Max films. Like what I particularly remember is one scene, and it was of Mad Max, and he's like at this either gas station or a bar or something, just outside, and it's abandoned, and then they and he has to quickly leave because there are bandits coming to
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that is that feels like a very different vibe than this. It's interesting to me that they chose to go in such a different direction for the franchise.
Yeah, well, so the three original Mad Max movies, and one reason I love this franchise and I call it my favorite franchise is it has all been written and directed by the same person, going back to 1978, George Miller, and he makes each one very much its distinct, different thing, and each of the original three movies feels very distinct from each other, and Mad Max, like there's very little continuity. You could even say like this literally might not be the same Mad Max from movie to movie. Although I think of it as more like folklore, like people are telling stories about this guy named Mad Max, and so the details are going to change from depending on who's telling the story.
I
Um,
was thinking sort of along lines of like the James Bond movies. It is the same world. It is the same Bond. They just recast him while they even though they keep some of the other actors throughout everything.
right, and sometimes it'll be like this James Bond. It's a different actor, but he went through this old adventure, and then sometimes that old adventure will never get brought up. Sometimes
Yeah.
James Bond was married and had his wife killed, and sometimes that'll never be brought up ever again. Yeah, it is kind of like the James Bond movies. It's like where backstory is not really the point. This is about
Uh,
the adventure that you're going on right now.
oh.
Okay, but Mad Max 2 The Road Warrior, the climax of that movie is basically a 20-minute chase on the road, and it seems like the idea for Mad Max Fury Road was let's make the whole movie out of that. Let's make a 2-hour car chase and make it the most intense that we can possibly make it. So it's very different. And if you
Mhm,
watch Furiosa, and I think you should watch Furiosa and let me know what you
mhm.
think. That also feels very different from Fury Road vibes wise.
Which I'm not surprised by. I since it's literally following a different character as the main character, but which is surprising to after like 40 years now or something the franchise them going and having a film that's sorry a different character, but I think that's kind of cool. Oh, I think I think so do any of the films like ever actually say what was the cause for like the wasteland?
They hint at it. So what's weird is like the first Mad Max movie takes place in the world before it collapses, although it seems like it's in the process of collapsing.
Interesting.
And then the next movie, it's just all collapsed. And there's like a prologue that has like stock footage of like tanks and stuff running down the street,
Mhm.
but it's all very vague. It is kind of like you fill in the details yourself and
Oh,
think like these movies were made at the height of the Cold War.
oh
Just, you
yeah,
can
makes sense.
assume, oh, nuclear war or whatever.
Yeah,
But that's why
yeah.
they're kind of timeless. They fit into any era.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. A sign that I think not a lot of wasteland or just like post-apocalyptic films do that. I really like when they do because I think this makes a lot of sense. And sadly, this film is clearly not one of those that did. Is I like the idea of of all of the technology and like water, it's still active even though even in this post-apocalyptic world. And I like that because I think it's an interesting thing how if something actually happened, nobody would turn off the power and the water on people. Like people would just be running to safety and stuff like that. So I think and the only film actually the only films I actually know of that really made this be a part of their film is the Zombieland films.
Where there's still running water and electricity, you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. I
Yeah, but
think
this
that's
I mean,
really interesting. Interesting, and when films are willing to do that because I think it changes the dynamic for a post-apocalyptic world.
yeah, and I like that too. I mean, I like all kinds. I love apocalyptic movies.
Yeah.
I love to think about it. I love it less than I used to. Now it feels too real. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
particularly the AI ones. I can't watch AI apocalyptic films anymore, or
yeah,
because I'm like it just feels too real.
they all feel too real to me. And this one, climate catastrophe, it all
Hmm.
feels like any of
Oh
it could
yeah.
happen. And you know what? The one that's probably going to happen is the one we're not thinking of. That's the real one that's going to happen.
Oh man.
Um, but yeah, I like what you said. Change the dynamic. If there's just like no more like state anymore, there's no government, but still you can like turn on your water and get electricity. But eventually that stuff is going to collapse too, and that's the point
Okay.
you're
Yeah.
at in Mad Max. And so the people who get the power are the people who are able to recreate it to a degree. Like a Morton Joe can control has tapped into the groundwater and he can control it. And
Hmm.
I love the idea that um like in our world, we have nation states. Like there wasn't a thing called the Kingdom of England. Some king,
Hmm.
some warlord just said, "I'm the king. I'm the king of this place." And then flash forward 400 years, and it's like, "Oh, this is an actual kingdom." And like in the Mad Max movies or in Fury Road, you have a Morton Joe, and you could theoretically flash forward 500 years, and now it's the kingdom of a Morton Joe, or it's the Republic of Gastown. I love that idea.
Definitely. Um, one character that I really enjoyed in this, which doesn't surprise me because I usually really enjoy him in films, is um Nicholas
Mm-hmm.
Holt as the
As Nux.
guy Nux. He was really fun in the film. Oh, now the other thing that I'm wondering about them is what determines whether people paint themselves white or not, because some of the people in Morton's and his crew are who have painted themselves white, and then some of them just seem normal.
No, I have no idea. And I think do they suggest he has some sort of skin condition or he's albino or something? He has they call him a half life because he has cancer. But there's just some kind of unspecified illness he has that's making.
Yeah,
Although I don't know if he is white or if he's just painting himself white.
but I'm pretty sure at least his crew is painting themselves white because like I can't imagine all of them also have cancer, and
No, but they
they
say that.
definitely wouldn't stay pale skinned if they were in the sun all the time.
Yeah, they all of these things, like there are answers for it. George Miller has it all figured out. It's there if you want to look for it. At the beginning, when they get Max and they start they make him, they turn him into a blood bag. Do you remember the scene where they're tattooing him on his back?
I
So it
think so, yeah.
Yeah, if you freeze frame on that, you can see what they're writing down, and they're saying things like he has zero lumps, meaning like he doesn't have any tumors.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like it's so common for people to have tumors that it's
It's
notable
probably
that this guy doesn't.
it's probably skin cancer
It could be that, yeah.
since they're all on the sun. Um, the one thing I found very interesting, even though Morton has all this water at his disposal, he still has them bathe him in sand.
Sure.
Which I'm like,
He's
well, that's interesting. I feel like it would be more healthy for you to do the water, but okay.
he's not a I mean, one thing I love this series. I'm just going to keep saying another thing I love about this series, but another thing I love about this series is like I think all these people are dumb. They're like they're baking
Oh
in the
yeah,
sun all day, and they're
definitely.
like they just found some trash, and they're like I'm going to build my new kingdom out of this trash, and I'm Immortan Joe, and I'm going to say these nonsense words.
Mhm.
So
So,
they're not doing the smartest, most efficient things.
oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. I thought I really enjoyed the dynamic between Max and Furiosa. So I do think it's a little strange, like how much of them kind of hating each other there is at the beginning, because like I feel they should have been able to tell that he was a prisoner as well. So they should have been like, wait, you're enemy of my enemy is my friend, sort of thing,
I think
instead of
it's
just immediately fighting each other and putting a gun up to them.
but he was going to like he was going to fight them. He would have killed them if he needed to. I think their instincts were right. It's just they
No,
realized that they
I
need each
mean like
other.
I mean both on his end as well. Like what I'm like I find it weird that he just sees them as enemies, and is when they are breaking and he should while he was stuck to that vehicle, I think
Yeah.
he should have saw that the what Furiosa was doing, so then would be able to figure out in his head, oh yeah, they're also trying to break out.
Well, I mean, his journey over the movie is starting in a place where he feels like he doesn't need anybody
Mm-hmm.
else, and that caring for other people, that's what gets you killed. And you know, the one part of the mythology that carries over through the series is in the first movie, his wife and his son get killed, and so he has this trauma that he hasn't been able to process, in this grief. But it's also made him think like I can't get attached to human beings because that just leads to more grief and sadness. Uh, so I'm literally just looking out for myself.
You know, some one thing I thought was very surprising, but I enjoyed, was the accent that Tom Hardy put on for
It's so weird.
Max.
It's so weird.
It is so weird, and honestly sounds very fake, but I think it works. Because I think I think when I think of older movies, is in the vein of stuff like the Mad Max movies. I think of things that not exactly camp, but there is a slightly camp feel to it. So the idea of him having this very fake accent, I kind of like, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
no, it does. It does. These movies are a little heightened. I always the comparison I always
Mhm.
make is Looney Tunes. There's something kind of Looney Tunes about this world, especially because it's set in a desert, like so many Looney Tunes are. But there is just kind of a heightened energy, and everybody's a larger than life character, and everybody has a weird voice. But Laci, my wife, who I was watching the movie with, I said he sounds kind of Jamaican, doesn't he? Because he if you listen you're like wait a minute, is he doing a Jamaican accent? That's so strange. And she said no, you're crazy, he sounds like somebody who
I
just doesn't talk ever.
I think he's just doing. I just thought he was doing like a really bad, gruff American accent, and to try and sound like on like Mel Gibson.
Well, Mel Gibson does an Australian accent, and he seems
Oh,
to be trying to do an Australian accent
that's in,
because
that's
Mel,
interesting because he is Australian. I'm
he is
pretty sure.
Australian, and the movies have always been produced from Australia, although this movie was actually filmed in Africa, but it was an Australian
Hmm.
crew, and most of the cast were Australians other than the stars. um, I don't think he's trying to do a Mel Gibson impression at all. But
Oh.
it's like all I hear is I hear Bane and I hear
Yeah,
Jamaican. But
yeah, like
mostly what I hear is I can't hear you. Like no one can hear you. Speak up.
yeah, but like um I've watched, so I've seen seen Dark Knight Rises, but it's been like many years since then. So really, when I think of Tom Hardy's voice, is him playing Eddie Brock in the Venom movies. He's in it, and this is just so different. It was surprising when Isaiah first went. I was thinking he was just gonna do his normal accent in this. Yeah.
Yeah, but he
Oh,
probably only says like, I mean, how many total words do you think he even says in the movie?
yeah.
It's not many.
Oh yeah.
So many gestures though. I
I
mean, I
think
love when he tells Furious at the end, Max, my name is Max, and then
yeah.
just kind of like nods and smiles a tiny bit.
Which I'm
And
wondering if she even heard that. Like,
you know,
was she
that's
even awake?
well, you know,
That's
it's
why.
the point is he
uh,
now felt connected enough to her to tell
oh
her
yeah,
that.
yeah. I just like I get that that's what they're going for. It's just funny to me to think, hey, what did she even actually hear that? Was this a good time to say that?
He'll write it down for her.
um, one thing I do think is a little bit of a missed opportunity is I don't think that they should have had them just send Max's his car away during one of the final scenes. I think they should have had that. Just like they captured this other vehicle, they should have also captured Max's car so that they could have that the final scene would be him driving away in his
Yeah,
car.
I don't remember what happens to his car. Does it get destroyed?
So it's not destroyed, I don't think, but it was one of the cars that was going up next to him. He's like, and he said, "That's mine," and then then something happened, and it made the car swerve off, and then we never saw it again.
Yeah. So maybe he's walking off into the desert to go find the car. I mean,
Maybe.
that's what he's definitely doing, in fact.
Yeah.
What do you think
I,
of what do you think of this? The final shot of the movie is Charlize Theron rising up to the Citadel and Max takes off on his own. And the original ending had him going up there with her. And it seems like the crew of the movie were very divided about which way to end it. Should he go up with her or should he go off on his own? I love the way it ends, but
think
what do you think?
I like how it ends. I I think that the way it ends works better if we do eventually get the third movie that's supposed to be a sequel to this. This at least from what I've heard, it's supposed to be a sequel instead of another prequel. Um, if we never get that, which I don't think we probably will at this point,
No.
um I I think it would work better if he was just going up there with her, or if that makes sense.
Well, I think the story you've been watching is him like he would have to be more okay with himself. He says the line about like
Mm,
if you don't fix what's wrong with you, you'll never be able to stop running. And he
yeah.
hasn't necessarily fixed what's wrong with him. He
Oh yeah.
just realized I can help them. They're worth
Yeah,
saving.
definitely. But I'm just saying, like from like an ending standpoint, like if we never see any more of his story, then him being able to end it where he's with these people, I think would be good. But if we do get to see his story continue, then what we got is best so that it is because I think how it stands, it is a tease for or like them basically saying there's more adventures for Mad Max.
Yeah, I kind of think like he's destined to just do this forever.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Makes
like James
sense.
Bond. James Bond's never going to be able to stop.
Oh yeah. Now what was the deal with the little guy that I um who doesn't seem to wear clothes that was at the Citadel?
I always forget his name, but he is Immortan Joe's son. Um, yeah, and what is going to become of him afterward? Because
Yeah,
they also,
how's why that because like it seems like he has some authority there, but it doesn't seem like a lot.
yeah,
Um, like we see him at in at the near the end, and but then when they actually open the water, he's then nowhere to be seen. Yeah, and so I'm very much wondering going on with him.
I don't think it's going to be good for him.
Probably
I
not.
don't think he's going to have a good time.
Uh,
But it's like this. It's like that thing with power. It's like power is if you
mhm.
are able to get people to respect you as an authority figure and a ruler, that's how you rule. As soon as and you can lose it very easily. And he was connected to powerful people, but now those powerful people have been replaced with new people, and so he's fucked.
Uh, it, one thing I think was um, I I understand it from a perspective of we just have to be able to keep the story going, but I think there's one scene that I think doesn't make sense of near the beginning when Morton and um finds that his lovers have been taken, and there's this old woman who has a shotgun to him. She should have shot him while he was far away instead of waiting for him to get up close and be able to pull the shotgun out of her hand.
Well, again, these are all people. They're in the sun all the time. They're malnourished.
Uh,
There's probably
it's
radiation in
like,
the air. They're not making optimal decisions.
yeah,
And I think she thought, she's like, I have some really badass things to say to him, so I'm going to say them and then I'm going to shoot him dead. She should have just, yeah, don't even bother with that. You have the gun, you have the advantage.
yeah, like you could have stopped all of this, but you chose to just keep yapping.
No, she's the real villain. It's a good point.
Oh man. Oh, but yeah, I did really enjoy it. I think that it is a great story. The story and like the action is very cool. The I think yeah, but I think all the like criticisms I have of it, they have it that I've mentioned to you, they're all like they're minor,
Hmm.
but they add up, and that's why on Letterboxd I was like, I'm not gonna put that as a five, but I but four seems about good to me.
Yeah. Well, it's for me, I love this story, but more than that, I love the height of the achievement
Mhm.
of stunts, of vehicle stunts, of practical effects. The movie has tons of CGI, but it's all to augment, to accentuate the practical
Mhm.
effects. When you see cars and trucks flipping and stuff, they're really doing that in
Uh,
camera. And this was a nightmare. This was a, this was hell to make. It took forever, but I'm just so in awe of what they were able to do and so grateful that it exists.
Now, um, whenever we were seeing scenes and scenes of the characters inside of vehicles, was since since you have that book talking about all of how things were made, were they actually like the whole time like I'm driving as they filmed, or was things a lot of the time just actually they stopped so that they could get the shots well?
No, when you see an actor driving, and this is pretty standard in Hollywood productions, is the vehicle's usually being towed,
Okay, makes
or
sense.
it's on like a truck, a small like flatbed truck. That's how they do that. So that I mean, sometimes actors will do actual driving, and I think there is real driving in this movie from actors, but it will only be for a few seconds. And all of the shots in this movie are so short; they're like 2 to 3 second shots, and that's what this movie is made up of little 2 to 3 second shots. But for the
Yeah,
most part, if you're seeing Charlize Theron behind the wheel, the vehicle is being towed. She's not
makes
actually
sense.
driving.
Makes sense. I was just more wondering for like the aspect of imagine with how much like how many times we see the shots from within a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine if the vehicles are actually constantly moving the whole time, it would be really hard to get all of those shots as they're moving.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I also thought it. I find it interesting. A lot of times in movies, whenever I see this, is they clearly make the vehicles to be bigger than vehicles in real life actually are. Because I cannot imagine being able to. move around in a vehicle the ways that Tom Hardy is in this.
I know, but that's I love that though. I love vehicle movies. I love people
Oh
just
yeah.
being so good at moving around their vehicle, and I love the war rig. And
Uh,
yeah, I'm sure in real life it's like way
makes
bigger than
it
it looks on screen.
makes me think these vehicles are made for people like The Rock to
Yeah,
drive.
probably.
Because they like and like they these the people who are actually like riding them. I feel like if you saw the behind the scenes in shots of them, they probably look so small in those seats.
I know, I know. Yeah, no, you're probably right. These things are massive, unnecessarily so. But it's
And
like,
I don't mind the massive. I like I like it, and I just like it's it's interesting to think about to me.
mm-hmm,
Which the behind the scenes of filmmaking, and just like that I find it I really interesting, and because of that, like I love whenever we get movies that are literally about filmmaking. So I always find it so cool. Or just like getting to see behind the veil of what's going on, and for like reasons like that, I are big reasons why I enjoyed like Fall Guy high earlier this year, or to a lesser extent, but still somewhat Babylon on like 2 years ago or something.
yeah. I've still never seen Babylon. I need to see it. I know because I love silent films. I know I'll like it. But I was thinking of Fall Guy because I was reading from this book a little bit earlier today just to get ready for this, and they're talking to the stunt director. His name is Guy Norris, and he's like, "Is it scary? No, it's not scary because I do my homework and I double check." And he said all this stuff, and it's like I think Ryan Gosling said all the same stuff in the Fall Guy. And I liked that that movie had such an appreciation for stunt work.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure there's like at least one moment in it where they're driving where I'm pretty sure like they literally like make it so it looks exactly like a scene from Fury Road. I seem to remember there being a scene in Fall Guy just like this where a character is at the top of like a giant pole that's a pole that's flinging from one car to another.
Hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't remember a specific shot, but I like two stunt people. This is the movie. Like this is the
Yeah.
stunt movie of like the past
Oh yeah,
40
it
years.
definitely. And yeah, like there are definitely like a lot of scenes where they do feel very similar in their with the stunts. I'm pretty sure or that Fall Guy was like this is Mad Max Fury Road. They are the blueprint, so we're going to just recreate a lot of stuff from that, which was really cool. Oh yeah,
And I
I
would assume that movie was produced in Australia or was filmed in Australia. I assume you get a lot of the same literal crew working on those two
probably
movies.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Trying to think what else is there to talk about this film. There are a lot of side characters in this that I feel like they want us to care about, and I'm just like I don't because we don't really get to know them.
Well, it actually it reminds me of Star Wars, of the original Star
Mm-hmm.
Wars, where there is so much going on in every shot, and there's these background characters. And if Mad Max Fury Road was it, and it was a hit, but if it were like a Star Wars level hit, there would be
Yeah.
novels written about every single character you see in the movie. Would each
Oh
get their
yeah.
own spin-off series of comics and stuff. And George Miller, because this movie existed, he developed it for 20 years and it existed for that long. He has backstories for every single character you see and every little prop on set. He could explain it all. And he had even written Furiosa before he produced Fury Road. So those stories
Mhm.
all exist. I think that's why the world feels so lived in, but you only get a little bit of time with any of them. There's
Yeah.
just a handful of characters who really come to the foreground.
Now, do you think that a film like this could work if they or if he didn't have as massive a budget as he did for it.
Oh no, I think he
Yeah.
needed, and this was like a $250 million movie.
And I say that just because I'm like maybe maybe they could get let him make the third film within this part of the Mad Max acting thing, but just with a smaller budget, just then they might be able to make a profit off of it. I Either that or I kind of like the idea of maybe him making a Mad Max TV show.
Yeah, and there was actually the origins of this movie started with him developing a Mad Max TV show in the '90s for do you remember, well, you're a very young person.
I
There
was
was
not alive during the '90s, so
God, oh my God. There was a time, my boy, called the 1990s, and there were TV shows called Xena and Hercules, and they
Mhm.
were these syndicated, kind of cheaply produced fantasy TV series. And the producers of that were talking with George Miller about making a Mad Max TV show in that vein. And as he started talking with these executives, he got excited about Mad Max again and decided he was going to do a proper movie instead. But
Yeah,
I don't want anything to be. I just want movies. I'm sick of TV, so I just
makes
want.
sense.
I just
Yeah.
keep doing movies.
Like, I'm just like trying to think of like a way that they might actually allow him to make a third one because I would like to see like some more adventures with Tom Hardy
Mm-hmm.
as Mad Max.
Well, okay. You couldn't do Fury Road on a low budget, but you could do something like the old Mad Max movies on a
Mhm.
small budget, and like
Yeah.
I would love to see that. Just a much smaller scale movie. You
Uh,
can't do a 2 hour truck chase, but
and
you could do just him in the desert meeting some people.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And um, one thing that I think probably the biggest credit, honestly, that I would give this film that like I'm so glad that George Miller didn't bring back Mel Gibson after everything we now know about him. I'm very glad that he's not in this.
Yeah, and the reason he didn't is because he was old. Because this
Mhm.
was in development at a time because this movie started to be developed in the late '90s, and it was going to go into production, and then actually 9/11 stopped it because it caused like the value of the Australian dollar to collapse or something like that. Anyway, something like that happened, and
Okay.
that ruined everything. But Mel Gibson was attached at that point. Once it fell apart, then he left, and then he did all his things, gotten all his little issues. Um, but it's I was thinking about that. Like I made this video last week on YouTube and on TikTok about deep fakes
Mhm.
because I'm convinced they're going to take over and ruin Hollywood, ruin movies.
Yeah, sadly.
And somebody was commenting that I got a lot of good feedback, but somebody was commenting and pushing back and saying deep fakes are sometimes necessary in case an actor doesn't want to return to a role and they shouldn't get to hold up the movie from being produced. And I was like, but you can just recast.
Yeah.
Like that's going back to the beginning of acting. You could just recast the role. And they're like, no, there are some roles that are so associated with an actor that nobody will be able to accept them being recast. And like, I'll point you to this movie. Like Mel Gibson was Mad Max for 40 years.
Mhm.
They recast him and everybody liked it.
Yeah, I do think there are some characters where there are sadly people who have that kind of opinion, like um people were up in arms when Disney announced that they were doing a solo movie and it wasn't going to star Harrison which which honestly I think that solo movie is very underrated because I had a lot of fun when I watched it. But I'm pretty sure that in part are them having a different actor playing him as well as like just the backlash from the Last Jedi is what made it not do well. And so
I think that the backlash to Solo is why there is one of the reasons they're investing in deep fakes because they're
mhm.
like, we got to find a way
Oh
to
yeah,
keep Harrison
it's
Ford
like
around forever.
uh,
But like,
I
make
think that um deepfakes The only situation where I'm okay with like deep fake or CGI technology is if it's a very short appearance and it's to honor an actor who has passed, like
like Fast and
Paul
Furious.
Walker, yeah, Paul Walker with Fast and Furious. Which speaking of which, I was while watching Mad Max Fury Road, I was like, this feels like Fast and Furious dialed up to 11.
Mm-hmm. Oh
And
yeah,
I feel
and
like that is the ultimate end game of the Fast and Furious franchise. But then the other situation, other or film where I think that it worked having a deep fake or CGI. I also was to try and honor a past actor, which was Ghostbusters Afterlife.
no, I didn't like that. I didn't like that. For me, if they are dead, they can't give their consent, and
Hmm,
that's kind of like the end of the line for me.
makes
At
sense.
least in that movie, he's not talking. At
Yeah,
least he's not talking, but they're having him do stuff, and I don't know.
I think
I don't know. I just don't. I To me, it's
yeah.
just ghoulish to basically resurrect a dead actor, even if you get their family's permission, because they're
Oh,
not around to
oh
say
yeah,
I
definitely.
approve or don't approve of this.
I
But
I I think if it's like I definitely I don't think it's great, but like those are the only kind of situations where I will accept it is if it's trying to honor them. Like it should be like if you're going to do that, make it sign where it's honoring them, not just fan service. Like
well, I think that
I heard that there's a character in the new Alien film that for the majority of the film is in there, and it's a past actor. I'm like, that really feels ghoulish to me.
that hey, there's a reason I made the video. I was
Yeah.
responding to a certain movie I saw
Mm-hmm.
that made me very angry and thought I see the future and it's just this,
Yeah. And
just more of this.
they and also apparently the same thing may have happened. I'm not quite sure because there seemed to be conflicting information online with a character in Furiosa.
What did they say with
Um,
who?
the something farmer.
The Bullet Farmer?
Yeah, I think Bullet Farmer. The actor who played him in Mad Max Fury Road died in 2018, and and apparently the character appears and it looks like it's the same actor in
No, because they
Furiosa.
no they recast both him and a Morton Joe because the
Huh.
Morton Joe actor also died. I thought I there was some. I remember there were rumors that there was like one shot of Charlie Theron in the new movie that might have been deepfake, but I don't
Um,
think that's true. But I'm not 100% sold on this.
yeah.
I certainly hope this isn't true because I've kind of carved out the position that if a movie has a deepfake, I won't see it. But I love Furiosa. It's my
Yeah.
favorite movie of the year. What am I gonna do? Um,
Yeah.
but like but with I'd say Han Solo a more iconic character than Mad Max. So yeah, it's going to be hard. You have a tougher uphill battle to get people to accept a new actor playing
It,
him than you do Mel Gibson as Mad Max.
I think that the thing is, it's harder to get people to accept it, but they just need to accept it.
Or like
Like,
it's but yes, no. You as a filmmaker, as the director or the many different directors of Solo and the actor playing new Han Solo, it's your job. Win them over. Do the best job you possibly can. And like that movie's pretty good, but I don't think it did a good enough job on selling
mhm.
people that this is the new Han Solo.
Oh yeah, like I think, but I mean, it's just like people need to either accept a new actor or let the character retire because I don't think I hate the idea of full films where it's a CGI I version of the actor. Or I would hate that, but also particularly with like these characters who people have grown to love of in big franchises like Star Wars. you should be willing to let new actors take on the roles so that those new actors can get to have can get to be a part of this thing,
Mm-hmm.
or retire them and let new stories happen in that world that don't follow the same white savior characters.
I mean, hey, you, your mouth to God's ears. Yes, make new stuff. How about that? How about just make a new thing?
Like,
Um, the commenter who I was going back and forth with also was saying like, why should the fans have to suffer if an actor doesn't want to participate anymore, but we still want to see the character? I'm like, you're not suffering if you don't get to see the character again. There's no suffering involved in that. You just don't get a movie. You'll be okay.
like
So there's kind
there
of an
is
entitlement.
absolutely real suffering happening in the world. You not getting to who see the character you've seen for 40 years is not going to make you suffer.
No, nothing could be worse if I don't get to see Han Solo again.
Oh man, like I think you probably saw. I had made a video after the Acolyte got canceled for as of Star Wars, and like I got someone commenting on that about they're like and they were complaining about how why should they have to like suffer or something because Disney doesn't want to give them the original fans what they want from the series. I'm like, God, you have those three original films. Let other people
No
get
one's taking
stories
them from
now.
you. No one's taking your stuff from you. It's still there. You get it. No, I
If
know
you
any.
if you think that stories being made about people who are not just white dudes ruins your franchise, I'm sorry to
And
tell you,
sorry,
but you're a bigot.
that's what the acolyte was. I don't know anything about the acolyte. It was like a little more diverse.
Yeah, yeah. Let me honest. I actually have not watched the show. I haven't watched Star Wars or since they started doing Disney Plus shows.
Oh
But
wow.
but I knew that the Acolyte was a show that had a lot of diversity in it, and Disney had also just a couple weeks before shelved Eternals 2, and then they canceled the Acolyte. I was and that between those, which for their two biggest franchises, though the Acolyte and Eternals had some of the best diversity that Disney's put out. Um, so it really pissed me off the idea that they are canceling both of those O's and within just a few weeks of each other. I think that it very much shows that they are now leaning towards Lord. Let's make the bigoted fans happy.
Well, they it's always been a problem listening to the loudest assholes
Oh
online.
yeah.
It's not a winning
And,
formula, but that was my reaction to the Comic Con panel a few weeks ago. Was them just being like, "Hey, baby, we're going back 10 years in time. We're doing
yeah.
it all over
Okay. Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Doing it
They
all
just
again."
like it really is like a defining trait between all those loud big fans is they want to go back to the white people.
They're not going to be happy with that either, though.
Yeah, no, but they'll never be happy. I mean, because they just want to whine.
Oh yeah, yeah. Their parents didn't love them enough or whatever. But the Acolyte was a show run by a woman. I know that. I
Mm-hmm.
think that was the first. It might have been the
Yep.
first Star Wars show to be show run by a
It.
woman. The Eternals directed by a woman and a woman of color, an Oscar-winning
Yeah.
woman of color. Um, it feels like they started to give these jobs to women and to women of color kind of after the peak of popularity of both series, which is a little suspicious. Like,
Yeah. Though I will say, I think at least for Marvel, that is less Disney's fault and more one of the former executives, Ike Perlmutter, he refused to let Marvel be diverse, and then they threw him out in like 2018. So and so after that, they were allowed to start doing stuff like not like Black Panther and the Captain Marvel movie, and that was at the peak of their success. As
But in terms of letting women direct, a woman
oh yeah,
didn't get it to direct a solo Marvel film until, was it Eternals or was there
I
something before that?
I think I think they I think the Captain Marvel film might have had a
That was
had
co-directed. Bowden and Fleck. That was co-directed
oh
by a
yeah.
woman, but just solo woman
Um,
director.
and then maybe
And it had to be
I don't
it had
know.
to be an Oscar winner for them to
Yeah,
allow it to happen.
yeah. Like so the Eternals. So we had like there was representation for many different races. There were both male and females. They even had a gay character kiss on screen, which was amazing to see that actually finally happen in a Marvel film. And
I found
then
that genuinely surprising when I saw that.
oh yeah,
I thought it'd be like a respectful little peck on the cheek and then a
and
nice handshake. But no, they
and
went for it.
from
Give them
everything
credit
I
for that.
know about the acolytes, as I said, I haven't actually watched the show, but from what I know of it, it was a majority or the minority cast. It was like they weren't most of the people were not white. And they also a lot of them were not male, and not only that, but I'm pretty sure the two main characters are lesbian.
Hmm.
And it's it just those two things being canceled within weeks of each other really felt suspicious to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it all goes back to the Last Jedi, and the Last Jedi, like it is not like a paragon of diversity or anything. It has a woman is the main character. There's one black guy. It's like it's basically like, hey, Star Wars. It's like the old Star Wars movies in terms of representation, but this time a woman is the hero, and so the fans friggin' shat in their diapers,
Oh yeah.
and Disney pivoted hardcore away from that. And I love the Last Jedi, and that was when my faith was lost.
Oh yeah. It's annoying. It's annoying. But like I think the thing that really annoys me the most about it is I had been for the past 3 years telling people that that this is signed as a possibility that they're going to start are listening to those beta fans, and if we don't make it clear that if you don't like I'm it's not because of the diversity, and um for years people kept telling me you're crazy. They'll never pivot to wanting to listen to those kind of fans. I'm like, and now it seems to be happening, and I'm annoyed that these people were gaslighting me into thinking that what I knew was happening wasn't happening at all.
But I mean, this is a problem that goes well beyond movies and entertainment. This is also politics. Why is our entire politics based around accommodating racists and a
Oh yeah,
tiny sliver of
definitely.
conservatives? But I'll tell you this: I was watching. So the Mad Max movies, they remind me a lot of Buster Keaton silent films, and I love Buster Keaton silent films. So I was watching The General, his movie about trains last night, and that movie, which is set during the American Civil War, was based on a novel. And the character that Buster Keaton plays in the novel was a soldier for the Union. And this movie that they made in 1927, they decided we can't have him fight for the Union. He has to fight for the Confederacy because the people in the South will riot if our movie has a hero who's fighting for the Union. So it's basically like the 1920s equivalent of the Star Wars fans who are getting mad about diversity are people who are like, we need pro Confederate representation in movies. So all of that is to say, this is not new at all. Like this
Oh yeah,
goes all
definitely.
the way back. It's always about just living in
Oh yeah.
fear of your most conservative critics.
Oh yeah. Like I've always been of the opinion of we have to push back from those narratives, and if anything, we need to be louder than those people and saying, "Hey, we like the like representation. We want you to do more of it. We will not accept it. We will not accept things like casting a white dude to play a Romani on character for your upcoming Avengers film. Like it's just like why? But there's sadly not enough people who are willing to fight back
I,
against those
I think
things.
I think, and I don't know what the reason is, but I think that even if there were, if you were, if we were twice as loud, if we were four times as loud, like that still wouldn't. They're still so scared of conservative backlash, and I
Mm-hmm.
think maybe it has to do with like Hollywood being
And I
labeled
don't
liberal that they're so worried about that
and I don't
label.
understand being worried about that because
I
these
know.
these kinds of fans, they may be loud, but they're not the majority of the fan base. They are very much a small minority, or they're just able to make themselves sound loud.
Hmm.
And it's very clear that their whole idea of go woke, go broke is a false narrative. When you just look at something like Barbie last year, there that did very well, and and there's no way someone could say that that is not quote unquote woke.
Hmm. Yeah, well, and unfortunately, the lesson they're going to take from that is we need more movies about toys, not we need to hire women directors and give them freedom to make something to make what they want, basically. Um,
I what I really want to happen because like I like you I do want more like original films and directors to get more freedom to be able to be creative. What I would like to see happen, because I don't think that there's a world where we're going to have at least ever again where studios are just allowing just that. What I want to see happen is studios letting these directors do what they want, but telling them, hey, just make it just makes it so that it fits within in this certain brand, but then you can tell whatever story you want. Which I feel like that's what the Barbie movie
that's what Barbie. Well,
was.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
They
the ideal version of that.
like I think that because then these directors they can get to do whatever they want on they can tell all their story, but it actually will make money.
Well, I mean, and Fury Road is part of that too. Like, yeah, I
Mhm.
want original films, but to me, the most important thing is strong directors getting to do what they
Mhm.
want to do and getting to do what they want to do best. And if that's within a franchise, I'm totally fine with it.
Oh yeah.
I love the Mission Impossible movies. That's why I love the Mad Max movies. Um, I wanted to say I think that the backlash of the anti woke crowd, just another reason for it that is worth mentioning is just Twitter and just social media incentivizing and elevating the most outraged voices if they're outraged in a certain way from a certain direction. And so
Yeah,
it sounds louder than it
sadly.
actually is.
And that yeah, that sadly is the case. Um, and, and I think and it's gotten a lot worse since Elon Musk bought the company.
Hmm.
Um, but I I think though we do still need things like Twitter because there are so many people who that is their way to be able to actually meet people who have different kinds of voices than their own. And like before I started already getting on Twitter and talking on there, I was in a very sheltered reality where and I was a very right wing person back then, but as I started getting on Twitter and started talking to different people who aren't just as straight male white Christians, I grew so much empathy and was like this is why is the way I was raised to is to believe that these people who are different than me are bad. And I think having a space online that people can anybody can join is makes it so it's so we can actually have something like that. And sadly, I think dealing with the racists, the homophobes, the transphobes, etc., is a risk we have to take to be able to help different people get out of that shell.
Mm-hmm. I love Twitter. I don't want Twitter to go away. And what I really love is Twitter of like 10 years ago.
Oh
But
yeah, definitely.
um, it is not just a Twitter problem. It's on YouTube and it's on TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
and it's algorithms. It's when
Oh yeah,
algorithms drive the content, they're gonna elevate the most extreme voices.
especially when you have the CEO at the top wants those
Who
voices.
wants who is doing that by design.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like honestly, I think they're all bad. All these companies are bad.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He's the shitty one, so like you don't know who
Yeah,
owns
yeah.
YouTube.
I know they're all bad, but I just think that there is like an aspect of them that we absolutely need as society. If we do want to be able to progress forward and to be able to help people,
Hmm. No,
sadly.
I totally agree. Yeah. This is honestly it's such a big conversation. It's like what do you
If, if
do
we,
about this problem? It's like I think it's like it's government action. I think it's we need legislation that deals with it regulates
Mhm.
algorithmically driven content, and I think that would take care of a lot of these problems. But that's never ever going
Oh,
to happen.
I think we also need like a side that I think would be a good thing is the government and early like the president should come out and like actually say defining freedom of speech, saying freedom of speech means you won't go to jail for saying certain things. That doesn't mean that there's not consequences.
Hmm. Um, yeah, but then what would snarky people like us say when people say, "But I have my freedom of speech"? I'm like, well, freedom of speech just applies to the government.
It's just and I think doing sign like that, that had like, well, it wouldn't fix things. And I think I think it would make a lot more companies realize that freedom of speech does not just mean allowing people to harass others and us and say a asinine things all the time.
No, these companies can restrict whatever they
Oh yeah,
want. They are not the government.
I'm just saying is I think that might help at least some of them realize that they realize that what they're doing is not right.
Hmm.
It might not. It's not gonna fix it, but it might help some of them at least realize.
Hmm.
The but then there are other situations where it just would not matter. It absolutely wouldn't. Like with the situation with Elon Musk, he Elon Musk wants to make people think he's a centrist when it's like, no, we all know you're absolutely not leaning in any way towards the left. You want the bigots to be able to do whatever they want.
Yeah, that's what this whole thing's been about. Is just
Yeah.
to own the libs.
It, it,
He's a centrist because like he
I,
also wants to smoke weed. That's what he means.
yeah. Though
Otherwise,
I don't think he probably cares about outside like that being legal. He's a billionaire. He'll find a way to get you
yeah, no,
legally.
for himself, to be clear.
um, yeah. I it's I think a lot of these people don't understand. A lot of people who are like anti woke, they don't seem to understand is politics have been a part of entertainment forever. Politics have been a part of every facet of our lives forever. If you can't tell that, you're just too dumb to be able to tell that.
Mm-hmm. No, I know. I remember you made a video about this, about people saying can't they take the politics out of our entertainment, but it's always
Yeah.
been a part. The classic example is people will complain about Star Trek these days and be like, Star Trek shouldn't be political. It's like, have you watched the 1960s show? Do you know what that was about? Do you know the environment, the world it was made in, and what it was responding to and commenting on? That doesn't seem
Oh,
political to you?
to me, the two examples that I always come to immediately are: do you think it wasn't political when Disney made Bambi a film where the film where hunters are the bad guys,
Mm-hmm.
or the other example that I always like to give, because I'm a Hulk fan, is his original comics, like when they started coming out in the 60s. They were are anti-war, anti-military, and they used the Cold War as a backdrop for that. Like, how can you say that wasn't political?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's political when you notice it. It's like, or if you disagree with it, then you call it politics. If you don't notice it or you agree with it, then you just accept that it's normal.
And I think that they're like since these people obviously they don't, unless they are told something all the time has a political message in it, they don't realize. I think that a lot of these people, though, if political messages were taken out of everything that we watch, all of our entertainment, they would then notice how shallow these stories are. Because without a deeper meaning, any story you tell is going to be shallow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even like, um, I mean the MCU movies today, they do like they in order to get they work with the Department of Defense so they can get access to military bases and tanks and stuff to put in the movies. And as a result, the DoD gets to read their scripts and approve their scripts. And like that is an intensely political thing that I think
Sure.
like that American audiences don't think much of. But if you heard that a Chinese movie was coming out that the Chinese military got to approve of, you'd be like, that's propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
But when it happens here, it's just like, that's just what I don't know. You don't notice it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, um, it's just so obvious to me that I mean the fact that that they are just too dumb to be able to tell that there's politics in these things, unless somebody shouts in their ear, there's a woke agenda in this. Like, it's particularly obvious is from the fact that films that had strong on feminist themes, before the wave of these grifting YouTubers, they didn't think were a problem, but now sign that basically the exact same thing, it's a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and it's obviously just because as someone who is smart enough to make money off of them told them that there's all of them that there's is this problem, like the original Alien movie is absolutely a very female empowering film with almost Sigourney Weaver's character. If that were made today, the exact same film, you know that it would be these people would be up in arms about it.
You know,
Same with Lord of the Rings.
well, I mean, what they say is like, look, I don't mind female protagonists, but why do they have to be so obvious about it? Or why they're just doing it just to do it? But, you know, the internet didn't exist in 1979,
Mm-hmm.
so nobody gave a shit.
Yeah,
I mean, people were mad at home, and the studios never heard. And I'm sure when Billy D. Williams showed up in The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, tons of racists were really unhappy, but we never had to hear about it.
and but also I don't think that a lot of them like cared as much because there wasn't someone telling them you have to care about this.
Absolutely, that is a great point. Yes, it is not. This is not necessarily organic. They are being fed, and it's all reinforcing each other. It's
Yeah,
they're all
definitely.
just listening to each other. They're saying
You,
we all need to get outraged. We are all under constant threat. It's
like
bad. It's bad.
you know that if you know that even though the internet was a thing in 2003, so there wasn't like this massive amount of backlash for from the scene in Lord of the Rings when this female soldier says, "I am no man" to Sauron, but if that happened today, they would be up in arms
There'd be
because
riots.
they
Yeah.
didn't because they simply the people telling them that they needed to care about this didn't exist back then. And even though the internet was the thing, and I don't know,
It's social media. It's not the internet. It's
oh yeah,
social media.
yeah,
It's it's
definitely,
it's algorithms elevating the outrage.
yeah. It really does make me like I wish there were a way that we could take one of these older films out of existence and then just re-release it today just to see their reaction because
Hmm.
like I think that would be such an interesting a way to show them how much of what they believe is bullshit.
Oh yeah, but they wouldn't learn the lesson like you want them to learn. But no, I think
Oh
about
yeah,
that too.
definitely.
I think about that with Star Wars, where people are like so set on what Star Wars is, and Star Wars is only one thing.
Mhm.
But when Star Wars was just one movie, and then they made another movie, and that new movie introduced all kinds of new rules and powers and concepts, nobody was like, "This isn't Star Wars. That's not what Star Wars
Well,
is. You can't move
actually,
objects through the air with the Force."
yeah, I remember this was a conversation back when the Last Jedi came out. Of since people were so up in arms about that film, um, along with the fact that a lot of people were saying that the sequel trilogy was just a repeat of the old trilogy. Signed, I think I remember someone saying there was such an interesting thing is when The Empire Strikes Back came out, everybody hated it,
Hmm.
but now it is the most beloved of
The
the
best one, yeah.
franchise.
And not everybody hated it, but yeah, there was some backlash, but
Mhm.
there was no internet. So God
It's
bless it. We don't.
it is. I think the most wild thing about uh, the entire Star Wars franchise is that it lived past the Star Wars Holiday Special
The Star Wars
because
Holiday
that
Special rules.
and like I don't actually hate the Holiday Special, but I know that most people do, and I find it so interesting because that was the second ever thing that came out for Star Wars.
It introduced Boba Fett.
Yeah,
You have
like how did
you have the actors there. It's
you,
incredible.
you like if today they did sign like that where it was where they released one film and then the next film was just absolutely awful like what people believe of the holiday special. There's no way the franchise would continue.
Well, so two reasons. One, it was the 70s. There was so much garbage on television.
Mhm.
There was so much garbage variety show stuff on television. And the second thing is it aired and then it was over and it was
Oh, yeah.
totally forgotten about. It's like it probably felt like a fever dream to people who actually watched it.
Yeah,
There was no way for
honestly,
it to live on.
the what actually made me find out that a Star Wars Holiday Special exists was Weird Al.
Mm-hmm.
like because it really was buried. Um,
It was
and
just this
like
thing that nerds knew about and like talked about. It sounded like a rumor. Did you know there was this thing?
yeah, and like after that, I started looking into things more, and I was like, wait, there's also Ewok films.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
There's so much.
Like it's wild to think how many Star Wars films existed before the prequels and equals, and people just act like they don't exist.
Yeah, I know those Ewok movies. That I forget about those. About the Last Jedi, and then I actually have to move
Uh,
toward
yes.
wrapping up. Um, when I saw the Last Jedi in theaters, and again, I love the Last Jedi. It's one of my favorite Star Wars movies. The scene where Admiral Holdo does the thing, the zips across the, jumps to hyperspace and slices through the big ship.
Mhm.
You know, um, I saw that in theaters, and when that happens, the entire theater was like hushed and watching the movie, and there's just that sound on the screen, and I heard people in the audience just like gasp in awe. And I was like, "This is people love this movie. This is so great." And then afterward, I learned people hate the movie, and hate that in particular. But it's like I've never heard an audience react, and like these big blockbusters don't do big spectacle moments like that. I was so
Oh yeah.
shocked that people didn't like that movie.
I really liked the Last Jedi. I like I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I liked that it brought some humor to the franchise because there are some pretty funny scenes in that. Like like at the beginning,
Yeah,
and they have a your mom joke. They have there's
it's like a Three Stooges thing. Yeah, it's
and
very broad.
and Luke throwing the lightsaber over his back. I really enjoyed that. And I thought that that was cool for them to bring that into the franchise. And it saddened me that people just made so there's no chances that a sign like that ever happening again. Happily at least Ryan Johnson has bounced back with his Knives Out movies.
Yeah, and him that movie failing is it it made $2 billion and was a giant enormous hit. And yeah, I'm always like, hey, the movie exists. I hate the Rise of Skywalker. I feel like the Rise of Skywalker negated everything good about the Last Jedi, but I don't care about that. I still have the Last
Mm-hmm.
Jedi.
Yeah.
But it made me so excited about the possibilities of the future of Star Wars. And then the next movie was like, no, forget all that. We're going back
Uh,
to the safety of the Skywalker bosom.
yeah. I think that's really everything to talk about for this
With Mad Max
episode.
Fury Road.
Yeah, yeah. We definitely did not spend and like half the episode talking about other stuff, but
We've covered some ground. I enjoyed
um,
it.
yeah. Thank you everyone for listening. If you like this gamma analysis, please give a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or 5-star rating on Spotify. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episodes. Please let me know. If you'd like to listen to more from me, please subscribe. Many more game analysis from me coming, so keep on the lookout. This again is your host, Master John, signing off.